Welcome everyone. Hello. Welcome really to our first live webinar of 2021 with the team at Modeus. We're so glad to have you all here today. I'm Kimberly from ezyVet and your host/moderator for this webinar. Dialing in here, as you can see, is Team Modeus, who will be our key speakers for today. We've got James Gold, who heads up the business development team, and David Tonoskovic, who's in charge of implementation and training and keeping James's customers happy. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
You'll also see we have another special guest here who I didn't have a picture of. It's Keith, owner and vet doctor at Middlegong Vet Hospital in New South Wales. Keith is here today as a mutual customer of ours to share his experience with the integration and how it works and how he uses it.
Hello, everybody. Yep.
Yeah. Hi, Keith.
Hi.
So just a little housekeeping for our audience before we move on. If you have any questions during the webinar, please add them into the Q&A chat box found at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll bring it up later. Do keep in mind that a recording of this webinar will also be shared if you want to review anything later. It'd be quite cool to give a little test if you wanted to put on the chat box, where you're dialing in from. Hello from which city, which state you're from, you're calling in from, dialing in from. Cool. And on the agenda today, we've got James taking us through the evolution from human health to animal health and how Vet S8 really came about. And he'll also walk us through, key differences between electronic and, paper registry or the physical cabinets, what real differences are with those. And he'll touch a bit on a smarter way to ensure employee well-being to avoid drug misappropriation, which is really what is one of the key features of Vet S8. And then David will take us all through best practices in terms of the recommended workflows and processes. And then we'll bring in Keith for the customer panel, followed by your questions at the end. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to James. Take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, Kim. Thanks for that introduction. So look, the first thing I'd like to talk about is a little bit about our company, Modeus, who we are and what we do. I'm not sure if many of you have heard of us, but we, just to give you a sense of our journey, we're based in Melbourne. We've got a full in-house team of obviously sales support, developers and a senior leadership team. And between 2003 and 2014, we exclusively serviced community pharmacy. So we're very, very well known in Australia with community pharmacy. Numerous products. We have a methadone product, it's a software product called Methio. We also have a pharmacy equipment product. But we are best known by far for our flagship product, which is DD Book. DD Book is an electronic controlled drug register that replaces the paper controlled drug register that community pharmacists use. And that was launched in 2010. And between 2010 and 2014, it moved from about 10% market share in community pharmacies to around 80%. So it's a hugely popular product. And it was so popular that actually other industries got wind of it. And we actually had a number of vets that used to visit our website and downloaded the DD Book software thinking it would be a good idea to use for their vet clinics. However, because DD Book is designed for community pharmacy, it wasn't really optimized for community pharmacy workflows. It wasn't really suited to them. So what we did, we obviously engaged with a number of vet clinics and we launched Vet S8 in September 2015. And so obviously throughout the journey, we integrated with a number of vet practice management software providers, including ezyVet. And ezyVet we completed the integration in June 2017. Fast forward to, it's now actually February 2021, and we have over 500 Australian vet clinics using Vet S8. It is our fastest growing product. We're in a number of industries, including pharmacy, community pharmacy, vet, obviously, aged care hospital, and warehousing and distribution. And this is our fastest growing product. It really is experiencing very strong growth. So a little bit about the journey, obviously, or the difference between paper-based versus electronic controlled drug registers. And I'm sure for those participants in the room, a lot of them will be actually quite familiar with what I'm about to say. And this is, it doesn't really matter what industry you work in. If you deal with controlled drug registers, generally speaking, you will have the same issues if they're paper-based. The first one is issues with legibility. Unfortunately, some people can't write very well, and their handwriting may be illegible, and that can be a major issue with owners or vet practice managers when you want to reconcile or when you want to try and read actually what happened in the register, what was actually transcribed. A second issue is around the accuracy of the register. Unfortunately, with people counting, they do sometimes make addition and subtraction errors, and that can lead to issues down the track with reconciling your register. And what that will lead on to is obviously investigations, and those can take time trying to figure out where the breakdown was. And then finally, there are issues with non-compliance, and that's just simply forgetfulness, vets or nurses actually forgetting to enter the data into the register. So these are all real world issues that vets and nurses would have with paper controlled drug registers. So now moving to electronic registers, controlled drug registers, obviously those issues will be basically eliminated. So with electronic registers, you will have no legibility issues. It's obviously a computer-based program, and you can read all of the line entries very, very easily. There's also greater accuracy. There is no manual addition and subtraction errors because obviously the system can count. And obviously the integration with ezyVet and all our vet practice management providers means that the register entries will automatically come across from, say, ezyVet to VetS8. So there will be no forgotten entries. And so if you have any issues with forgetting to write your entries, that issue will go away with the integration. And it's also much more efficient than transcribing in paper registers due to the elimination of double entry. The data you have in your vet practice system, such as ezyVet, you're essentially copying that over to your register, and with the integration, it does it for you, so you're not doing it again in your paper register. So there's some very significant benefits to move to an electronic system. Okay, so a little bit about VetS8, what it is and what it does, and sort of the journey of VetS8. So when we started the build, we consulted with a range of Australian vet clinics to understand the processes and workflows prior to building it out. So we actually met with a number of clinics. We understood how they work with regards to their controlled drug processes and workflows, and that was obviously key to starting the build. Then what we did, we piloted the system with 3 clinics in Australia in early 2015, prior to going live in late 2015. That was obviously to get feedback, to iron out any kinks and any bugs that were in the system. And then we were confident in, I think, September 2015 that everything was working very well and seamlessly, and then we went live. And it's, as I said, it's experienced really, really good growth. We also have, in terms of vet-specific functionality, so all of our systems have functionality specific to the industry. So some of the vet-specific functionality we have is accounting for wastage in the system. So we know, especially with liquids, a lot of vets might use a liquid such as a morphine or something in a syringe or an ampule or a vial, and there is often some wastage that would be in the syringe, and you have to account for that. So there is a very easy functionality to deal with that in the system. There is also the ability for vets to countersign vet nurses transactions. So we know in Australia, and we know it's very, very similar, if not the same in New Zealand, that nurses can actually write out the entries in the register. And then the vets must countersign those entries at a later date, generally, or later time, I should say, generally on the day is best practice. And so there's functionality to allow for that. So if your nurses are allowed to use the entry, to write in the entries, they actually have the ability to do so. Obviously, there's integration with all popular vet practice management systems in Australia and New Zealand, including ezyVet. Another great feature of the system is that we have real-time alerts for high-risk events, such as stock adjustments and stock checks. So why is that important? Obviously, a stock adjustments, you don't really, in an ideal world, you don't really want to be making a lot of adjustments to your stock. If you're doing it a lot, maybe there's something not quite right in terms of your processes. So if that's happening quite a lot, what you could that can trigger, if you turn on the alert for, say, an adjustment, it can trigger an email to go directly to whoever it's meant to go to, such as the owner of the vet clinic or the vet practice manager, to tell them what's actually happened. So-and-so made an adjustment to the ketamine on this date and time, and this is how much it was. So you can investigate that in real time. And hopefully, if it's not such, hopefully it doesn't become a bigger issue than it may if those were just left alone. And so, yeah, real-time alerts are very, very handy, and they're configurable for you to turn on or off. The other thing we have in the system, especially for vet practices that are in rural areas or deal with equine or bovine or farm animals, it might be hard to get them into the vet clinic. So what you have to do is you would transfer the controlled drugs to a vehicle. And so the system has the ability to have multiple registers. So a register for your clinic and maybe a register for a secondary safe in your clinic if you are a big clinic. And also you can add as many vehicle registers as you like, and they all talk to each other. So it's all integrated. So that's some of the features we have in the system. I'd like to this slide really just runs through a little bit about employee well-being, which is important, obviously, especially the fact that, we're still in a pandemic and there's a lot of anxiety around, and also just how it can reduce drug misappropriation. Look, most of you, if not all of you, would be aware that the vet industry, unfortunately, has a higher propensity for mental health issues and depression and suicide than the majority of other industries. I think it's documented that there are 4 times higher suicide rates in the vet industry, which is really unfortunate. But why is that? Obviously, there's high stress in the industry, but I guess a double whammy is that veterinary staff do have easy access to the controlled drug safe, and that makes for a potentially dangerous combination, especially if you're feeling anxious or your mental health isn't great. So how does VetAssate help to improve medication governance and compliance? So the first thing, as I previously mentioned, is that there are real-time alerts into the system, so you can catch potential issues before they become more serious issues. This is obviously something that it's real-time alert is a really great feature in the system, and you can then address it with a staff member prior to hopefully it doesn't become a bigger issue than it is. The other thing is around reporting. So the great thing about our system is that unlike the paper register, which is just reported, it's just filtered by the drug name up the top of each page. You can filter by any type of data you're after, whether it is a user, for example. So you can then plug in a user's name, and such as a vet or a nurse, and then put in some time parameters, and then do a search for all their transactions and get that data very, very quickly and easily. Or you can do it for a particular type of transaction, such as a stock receive or an adjustment or a stock check discrepancy, anything like that. And that will significantly reduce the time it takes to do investigations. And then also with the integration with ezyVet and the other vet practice management systems, it will ensure that no entries are forgotten. Once again, that is a really, really powerful bit of information to say that, you're not going to get any discrepancies, hopefully, with people not or forgetting to write in the system and what's in your drug safe and what's in the register. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of information around the journey of VetAssate and how it assists vet clinics. I'm going to hand you over now to David Tanaskovic, who is our Training and Implementation Manager, who will talk a little bit about VET8 and best practices. So thank you, David.
Thanks very much, Jamie, for the presentation. That basically, yep, I'll introduce myself. I'm David. I'm the Training and Implementation Manager at Modeus. And I'll take you through the best practices and workflows for the software, as well as some of the common workflows that we get asked about all the time, and show you how it actually works in action in the VET8 system itself. I'll also cover, of course, how ezyVet integration works. So yeah, we'll jump right into it. So in terms of your best practices for drug compliance, we know that vet practices are incredibly busy, and at times it can be quite hectic. So in terms of entering in your data, that's the real key to ensuring that you're compliant and that you tick all the boxes essentially. The best times to do so within our system is, of course, one of these three, basically. You have after invoicing. So as Jamie spoke, with integration, after actually processing invoicing, it will create pending items in our VET8 software for you to confirm. So that's a good time to potentially jump just across into VET8 and confirm those entries where need be. Additionally, any movement of medications in and out of your safe is also basically when you should be creating those entries so that you're most compliant. Whenever you take something out, whenever you put something in, usually in the form of like an invoice or destroying stock for compliance reasons. And lastly, as Jamie mentioned a couple of times, because of that advantage of integration, you have the option of actually doing it before the end of the day. As Jamie mentioned, that pending list is going to populate as you're invoicing customers so that no entry will ever really be forgotten. And you have that opportunity that at the end of the day to actually confirm those entries into your system. Okay, so that's just some of the best practices. We don't recommend leaving it to the next day and the next day. Keep up to date your records. That way you won't have any issues with audits. Now, next, in terms of ezyVet integration. So basically the ezyVet integration and most vet practice management integration works like this. You essentially bill a client in ezyVet, and the billing and details that you've put into that invoice will actually be sent across into VET8. All right, so it's very seamless. It pulls, excuse me, it pulls the medication information, the quantities, the address and details of the patient in question. And all you need to do as a vet is actually confirm that entry into the system. And I'll actually show you a demonstration of that in just a little while. But most people ask us, what information comes across. Basically, everything that is required in a compliance setting will come across. So you can ensure that you don't have to write a whole heap of information, have to rewrite the address, multiple times. Then information gets pulled across, saved in our system, and it's there for you to look up if you need to make any additional entries manually. Additionally, we will be looking in the future for receive for supplier integration. So we just wanted to mention that, which is when you are getting your invoices from your suppliers, you're getting your stock in from suppliers, that'll be able to eventually also come across into our system. But for the time being, you will have to do it manually, which is still an incredibly quick process, which I'll demonstrate. Now, in terms of common recurring workflows, so these are just some of the workflows I want to actually cover in my demonstration today. We get asked about these all the time. Firstly, countersigning entries, how to do that and how to go about it. Some vet practices get their nurses to confirm entries into the system at the point of invoicing. And now, since nurses are not, basically the authority to actually confirm those entries into the register, they will require that counter signature from a practicing vet. There is a great workflow within our system to cover that, and ways in which you can actually countersign multiple entries. So it really makes your work a lot easier. Secondly, as Jamie mentioned, disposal of wastage, especially with liquids, ampules, and are very commonly used in vet practices. And I'll basically show you how to actually do discard declarations with ampules, how you would actually split an ampule into a different unit of measurement, so you can accurately say exactly how many mils within that ampule was discarded. Real-time alerting I'll demonstrate as well, as Jamie mentioned, show you how when you do an adjustment or there's a discrepancy in your stock checking, it will send across an alert. And I'll basically talk a little bit of pre-meds as well. It's very common for a lot of practices to use what's called pre-meds, essentially building a procedure rather than the specific medication for a client. And it does send some information across at times. At other times, you may have to actually do a manual entry for that. And I'll demonstrate how you can do both. Now, I'll jump across into my VetAsite system. So this is my VetAsite software that I have in front of me. All right, so it's a very, very simple software to use. And look, I won't give you a demonstration of all the functionality. There's fantastic training videos that I will allude to later in the webinar. But basically, I'll cover those main 4 aspects that we talked about, including the integration, I guess, main 5 aspects of the software. So starting with the integration with ezyVet and other vet practice management software, as I mentioned, you would invoice a customer, and within VetAsite, you'd actually go to your supply in the top left-hand side, and you'll get a supply to patient pending list. So here's a list of all the items that I've actually invoiced over the course of the day within my system. As you can see, it'll have imported and created dates, it'll have patient names, the medication in question, the quantity of that medication that is being used, as well who it was invoiced by. Now, a big tip here is a lot of vets, what they do is they'll find just the entries that are related to their actual customers. So if you have a multi-vet clinic and multiple vets work there, you might want to just search for your own name and just find the items that you need to sign off on. So I'll select some items here. I'll do multiple items just to show you how that works. And I'll go to process. Okay. So once you go to process items, what I'm going to show you is how a nurse would sign off an item and then how you would countersign that. Okay. The first thing to note is that everything is pre-populated. So basically whatever I've done, it's already in there. The patient details, the medication, the quantity, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my nurse user. So I have a nurse user here. Okay, and straight away, as soon as you select that user, you'll know that that nurse user cannot be a prescriber, and you'll need to actually select the prescriber, which would be the prescribing vet. Now, it gives you a hint because sometimes the prescriber will be the invoiced by. Okay, but it's not always the case. You can always search for the prescriber if you need to. All right, once you select the prescriber in, the nurse would put in their password to confirm that entry, and they would press OK and next to go to the next entry. All right, now the record will have a little warning in the top right. My computer is very fast, but it basically does tell you that that entry will need to be countersigned. I'll just do the same for this second entry. I'll select the prescriber here. And I'll put in a password. And as you can see, you can go through these very, very quickly and efficiently. Okay, so that was just basically 2 entries. Since I've done all the entries, it'll take me through to the daily entries. In red, it shows you and highlights the items that require counter signatures, which is both of those entries that are created. And there's also a discard entry that is added additionally with one of the integrated items. Now, in terms of countersigning these entries, okay, as a practicing vet, what you would normally do is you would go to tasks pending countersign. All right, and here you'll get a list of all your items that you need to countersign. You can, again, do the same thing. You can search by the actual prescriber if you need to. In this case, they're both for me, so I'll just select them. And you can select multiple items. You can tick to select all here on the left-hand side, and all you need to do is really press countersign entry, select yourself as the user, put in your password, press OK, and it'll clear the entries and have them countersigned. If I go back to my daily entries screen, it'll actually show me specifically who signed off and what the time of the sign off was for the vet practices. So this is all reported. This can all be pulled up. All this information is readily available. So it makes it really seamless and easy to confirm basically entries. And it allows the nurses to enter them in at the time of taking them out of the safe as well, which is the opportune time to actually do these. All right, cool. Next, I will cover disposal of wastage and liquids. So as Jamie probably mentioned a while back, you can dispose liquids like ampules, and you can dispose it in 2 different ways. Okay, so we have 2 different options. So I'll select here a injection. I'll press process. So we have here a ketamine injection, and essentially there's 2 ways to discard an injection. You can do it either by discarding the whole amount. Usually if you were to do it this way, you'd probably supply, let's say 0.5 and discard 0.5. It would equal to 1 whole injection. But in the case of injection, it's actually more common to do what's called a discard declaration. Now, a discard declaration lets you actually use a different unit of measurement to discard that injectable. So if it was, for example, in this case, it's a 20 ml injectable, we can say that 15 ml was discarded or something like that. Okay, and then you would have your vet sign off on it and confirm that entry. Okay, now a discard declaration will not affect your balance by removing 15 ml or anything like that. It's essentially just like an additional line that explains that when that 1 vial was used, this is the amount that was actually wasted within that vial. So all that information is written as a note under that entry. Okay, that gives you the exact discard amount, and you can use this for any decimal points. If it's a 1 ml vial, you can have 0.45 of the vial was discarded or whatever amounts. Our system allows multiple decimal points. So yeah, that's no problem at all. Next, I'll go to real-time alerting and explain a little bit about that. So real-time alerting, it's tied to certain functionality that are considered, I guess, high risk, such as stock adjustment and stock check discrepancies. I'll show you with stock adjustment, just because it's fairly quick. Basically, if you do an adjustment for any medication and you have real-time alerting switched on, what you can do is, I'll just select Temgesic here, and I'll say -1. You always need to put in a note for adjustment. I'll just put note for adjustment. And I will select myself as the signee. Okay. Once I press OK, what that'll do is it creates an email alert. So it's real time, straight away goes to the manager of the system. And that email alert then needs to be actioned. And then you would basically check whether that adjustment was fraudulent, whether it was okay. And just in case these actions do happen, it gives you a chance to review it straight away rather than having to wait for it.
David, can you show them the alert? Oh, you are.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yep, I will. Just getting there. So I'll jump really quickly into my system's email. Here's the alert here. As you can see, stock adjustment gives me the entry ID, so I can look it up if I pull up a report. It gives me the drug, which is important, the quantity, and who actually created that entry. So everything will be real-time alert. You will get all the details that you basically need to actually do an investigation if you need to, or to confirm that that information is correct. All right. And lastly, I'll talk about pre-meds. So with regards to pre-meds, there's 2 ways really to handle them, and it really depends on your practice management software, what will happen. Usually you'll have the pre-med essentially set up as a Schedule 8 within your practice management software. So when you go into supply to patient, 1 or 2 things might happen. One, potentially a pending item will come across, and 2, it won't come across, basically. So if it does come across with pre-meds, what normally happens is you'll have an empty drug name under that pre-med, which basically allows you to enter it in manually and just change the medication details. So if I were to select, let's say, process under this item, basically this drug area is where you just have to fill out what the medication was, okay? That's basically it. In the case that you have to do it manually, I'll just go to supply to patient. You can just press new under the supply to patient manual window, and then you can just select the patient if they've been there before, or if they haven't been there before, you can just add them by pressing plus, put in some of their details, and then select the medication, etc. So I'll just do a quick one here, just show you how quick it is. We'll just do Temgesic, we'll do 1. Okay, you might have a reference number, which will be your invoice. And let's say if I am the prescriber, it's fine. I'll sign off on it and press OK. So it takes, as you can see, just a couple of seconds really to do an entry. If you know what the entry was for, what the medication is, the quantity, it's fairly quick and easy. All right, so I'll jump back into this. So lastly, I'll just want to mention, of course, additional training and resources with basically with this partnership with ezyVet. Of course, we are offering our VetAssate training course to obviously attendees that are interested in getting more in-depth knowledge about VetAssate and how it works and all the functionality. You can obviously feel free to share this with your colleagues as well, so that they can enroll in case they need some additional training if you're using the software, of course. And yeah, it's a great tool, and it's easily to scale the training. And if you need reporting on how much anyone has done, we can talk and set that up as well for clients. And that's it for me.
Cool, I'll take over from here. Thank you, David, for sharing that. Before I bring Keith in, I had a question about the common occurring workflows. Is it recommended to use a few at the same time, or use in conjunction with each other, or they're normally one?
Yeah, look, it really depends on basically with this one, it really depends on the practice, how and when you'd actually do your entries. Mm-hmm. Sometimes after invoicing, it might not be very easy to actually do your entries, or you might have a very busy practice. So it'll really depend on the practice. That's why we try and make our software as flexible as possible, so that you can basically have your entries whenever you need to do them.
Oh, cool. Well, I guess this is a good segue into asking Keith how he does it. Keith, would you like to mute yourself? Go. Here we go. Oh, let's try. Try again, Keith. A little worked before.
1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Keith.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So I guess you heard me say that, I want to bring you into the customer panel now.
Yep.
I just want to learn a little bit about how you use ezyVet and VetAssate. Do you use it, as David shown before, do you use it after invoicing, when you have movement in safe, or before your end of day?
Look, I use S8 at the end of the day. My practice is one vet small animal practice. I've been using VetAssate for probably about 5 years. Mm-hmm. I was using it manually, manual entries, but now with integration with ezyVet, whenever I do an invoice or do a clinical record, all my S8s will flow directly into VetAssate, and at the end of the day, that's when I do my reconciliation or the process of as David has described just then.
Cool.
So it's easy peasy.
Walk us through a little bit about your, like an example of how you use it, from ezyVet, how you flow on to, tabs into the S8.
Okay, well, of course, I'm using Chrome, which is easy peasy, and I've got ezyVet on one tab, Vet S8 on another tab. If an animal comes in for, say, for a spay, it'll be given a pre-medication, which is built into the whole procedure using the bundling facility of ezyVet. So it's a 10 kilogram dog. It may get maybe 0.2 mils of butorphanol, and that's built into the anaesthetic regime. If it's a cat, it'll get butorphanol and ketamine. That'll be automatically billed, and you can alter the values in bundling without altering the prices. So that's a bonus. And then at the end of the day, I'll just go over and straight over to Vet S8 and do the processing. It's as easy as that. It's probably maximum of 10 minutes, and everything's honky-dory, as compared to a paper system, which was laborious and often inaccurate, and a lot of mistakes were made, and there were a lot of stuff fell through the cracks using a paper system.
Yeah, which brings me to my next question. How were you managing your controlled drug compliance with your local New South Wales state, regulations before?
Well, Vet S8, Modeus Vet S8 has a reminder system when to do your checking. It depends on the state as to when the checks and balances need to be done. But there's a reminder system. If David or James could correct me on that one, but it's quite normal to get a reminder to do your drug registry updates. Stock level.
That's correct, Keith. Yeah, I mean, before you close it down, it'll say that you have items in your pending list. So if there are items in the pending list, it means that they've been pushed across from ezyVet or your vet practice software to Vet S8. And if you close down before, like at the end of the day, and they're still in the pending list, it means that you haven't confirmed the entries into the register yet. The pending list is just the interim stage. You still have to confirm them by putting in your password, which is a legal requirement.
That's right.
So you are correct that it will remind you. So hopefully you won't forget to do any of your entries ever.
That's correct. So I think compliance is another big bonus for me. Having used the system, I think for 5 years now, James, that'd be about right, 5 or 6 years. Yep. It's fantastic.
What were you one of the vets that downloaded DD Book?
No, I was using the old red book that the New South Wales Department of Health sent out to me, and it was a shocker.
Is it still available?
I can't answer that question. I hope not. I hope every vet who listens to this program will go on to Modeus Vet S8. I'm not going to pay for this promotion, but it's a brilliant piece of software which integrates perfectly with the ezyVet.
Were there any concerns before you signed up with Modeus?
They gave me a trial period, and I saw the benefit of it straight away. And as I said, I was using it manually, but with automatic integration with ezyVet, there's no manual input of dog's name, owner's name, owner's address, invoice number, or anything like that. Everything just comes across just as it ought to fulfil the legal requirements of your state.
Was it pretty easy to set up an ezyVet? Because you said, you've been using it for 5 years, but you came on to ezyVet about 2 years ago? Was it quite easy to set it up? Yeah.
Absolutely. It was just a case of going into integrations, grabbing a file, sending it off to Modeus. Modeus talks with ezyVet, and away you go. I think we're up and running within the same day.
And in terms of helping your team, do anyone else in your practice use this as well, or is it just you?
Look, I'm a one-man practice, single veterinary practice with vet nurses. I do the entries myself, but I think Dave has given a very comprehensive rundown as to how a multi-man practice and a multi-vet nurse practice would incorporate Modeus Vet S8. So I wouldn't have any problem.
Cool.
Okay, I saw that there was a question did come through.
Yes.
As to, if I'm correct, if I can quickly look at it here,
Sure. Yeah, we might as well move on to the Q&A then, because we do have quite a few questions that have popped up. Thanks for that, Keith.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's cool. So we have a question from Andrew from Western Australia, who wasn't actually able to make it today. He has a question around the passwords, James. He says, I would like for less passwords to be an option on Vet S8. Not sure if it's possible.
Sure. So look, a lot of it will depend on the jurisdiction you're in. So for example, I think in New South Wales, in Australia, they require minimum six characters, and it has to be changed every 3 months. And that is based on their just what the rules and regulations are there. We personally don't put any restrictions on it. It's up. We don't see ourselves as the polices of how you want to work. We just provide the tools and the software, and it's really up to you. Obviously, some vet clinics themselves will want to enact stricter passwords just because that's part of their processes and the way they want to work. But we don't put a limit on it unless we're enforced by the jurisdiction.
Right, and another use case type question from Libby. A lot of our S8s are charged out as part of a procedure and not charged per ml of drug. How do you capture this, if it's possible?
For example, as a spay, within ezyVet, I've set it up as spay with each individual item. Say for a cat spay, ketamine, butorphanol, they are part of the procedure. They are within the bundle, and you can change the values within the bundle without changing the price of the final spay. So that's probably a question that could be directed specifically to ezyVet, and for ezyVet to give a live demonstration for you. But there's no problem in changing the quantities of what you're using. So I'd suggest get into ezyVet and start using the bundles, or I've also used the what do they call the note here? The sales templates. Sales templates, likewise, you can change the value of the amount of drug you might be using at the time within the template. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, for sure, Libby. And you can always reach out to our support team to do a quick run through and check of those sales templates as well as and the bundles that Keith mentioned. Cool. Our next question from Dave. Does Modeus get info from ezyVet before or after the invoice is approved?
Yeah, so I'll take this question. So it'll be after it is approved. Essentially, you need to confirm your invoice, then the information will be sent across. So if you do, you know, I don't know if ezyVet has the ability to edit after it's been approved, but any edits or anything like that, once it's been confirmed, will not actually change within VetAssate. You need to manually just amend it. And within VetAssate, it does still allow you any entries that are pending. You can manually amend them if you need to.
It's like the API, the endpoints zapping through to each other, I think.
Correct, correct.
Yeah. Cool. And another question from Dave. I think it could be for you too as well, David.
Yep.
Dave to David, how do you do a daily reconciliation for drugs that are in multi-dose vials?
Yes. So with regards to unit of measurements and medications, I mean, it can vary from practice to practice sometimes in how you actually handle it. Some practices might discard after using a vial. Some will keep the vial, and as you mentioned, it's a multi-dose vial, so you want to use it multiple times. In the case that it's a multi-dose, I'll jump into my system and I'll just show you. Normally, you would actually basically administer it. There's two things you can do. One is you can change the unit of measurement for that medication so that you can count it in mils if you prefer. The second option is actually to essentially dispense a fraction of that vial, which I showed you when I think when we were doing the first sort of, as you can see here, like for example, it's a 1 ml vial, you would basically dispense 0.3. Okay, and if you were to discard it and you wanted it to be a full 1, you can put in 0.7 as the discard amount. If there is no discard amount because you're actually giving out partially the vial, you would basically just leave it at 0.2, 0. Or whatever fraction of the vial you've actually given out.
Cool. Thanks for that. And I got a last question here. Keep them coming, but the last one I have currently is, how many computer workstations can you run VetAssate on, and does it affect the cost, the price?
Sure. I'll answer this. You can have it on as many computers as you want. It's cloud-based software, so there's nothing to download or install. It just runs on a web page on the internet. And so as long as you've got an internet connection in your vet clinic, which I assume pretty much everyone should have, you'll be right to use VetAssate. It also doesn't affect the price at all. So you can have it running on 10 computers, PCs in your clinic, or one. It's really up to you. I mean, most commonly it's probably mostly used closest to the computer that is near where the drug safe is, because it's just from a logistical point of view that probably makes sense. But you know, a lot of clinics have it on multiple workstations in their clinic.
Cool. Thanks for that, James. We've got one has come through from Oliver. How does wastage with injection occur? Is this set up automatically or done in ezyVet? Keith?
How does wastage with injection occur? I think actually David covered that one. Is this set up automatically? I don't know. Oliver, could you explain?
So basically, look, sometimes within your system, you can set up a wastage line within your invoice that can come across.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you've set up a wastage to be included in that, what will happen is if I select an item here, I'll just select some items here. It'll automatically come with a discard quantity already put through, like so. Okay, I just did that manually, but essentially it'll come across with that discard quantity based on what you put under the wastage when you invoice the customer.
And Dave has another question off the bat.
Oh yes, yes. Regarding reconciling multi-dose files. Yes, sorry, that is one thing I didn't cover. So when you're actually reconciling them, it's similar to, I guess, when you're reconciling methadone or anything where it might come in a bottle, in this case, or vials. So usually once you're measuring it, and it'll be different from practice to practice again, you might measure it in a cylinder or a bottle, and then, or additionally, more common will be you'll wait till the vial is completely done and then reconcile it. So whichever way you're doing it, once you've gotten the accurate measure, you will need to do a stock adjustment to do that reconciliatory action. And I showed you how to do a stock adjustment. You'd go to task stock adjustment. In this case, let's just select methadone as an example. You'd need to make that adjustment. If it's a -1, you'd put in a negative amount, such as -1. But if it's a positive one, you just put a positive amount. Usually, from our experience, when you get given like a small bottle or something like that, there's one of two ways it can go. You might actually have sometimes more, because sometimes they give you more than the actual within the bottle. But more often than not, because you're actually using syringes, you'll have a lot of sort of, I guess, wastage due to the fact that you're drawing up constantly the liquid. So what a lot of practices might do is they might wait till the bottle is finished and do that reconciliatory action just with the bottles that they have left. So if, for example, you had 3 bottles and each bottle is 100 mils, you know that you should have 300 once you've finished, let's say that 4th bottle, you should have 300. So whatever the current balance is, you would reconcile it to 300 by doing a stock adjustment, either positive or negative. Most of the time it'll be negative.
David, it also might be worth, just with regards to Dave's question, also just if they've got time, just very quickly going through stock check, because what you might do is a check of your stock and then an adjustment afterwards. So typically, you might do, you know, when you want to do a reconciliation, you go to open the drug safe and you do a measurement of whatever's in the liquid, and you say, right, I think there's 12.5 mil in there, or there should be. The system might say there should be 12.5 mil, but what do I have? If you go in there and you measure 12 mil, which means you're half a mil under due to wastage or whatever, you can record that in the system here on the right-hand side. The actual balance is less than the calculated balance, and then do an adjustment accordingly. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. And by the way, for anyone on this webinar, you know, I'm more than happy for them to reach out to us, and we can give a personalised demonstration and training and answer any questions you have, because obviously it's a little bit harder when you've got a whole lot of people asking a lot of questions in limited time. We're more than happy to cover off anything you need.
James, do we have time for one more from Mike? Or
oh yeah, absolutely.
Before we wrap up, so before we wrap up, we'll get Mike's answer.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Mike.
So I'll read it out for those for the recording. So Mike asks, can errors be corrected once an entry has been signed off? For example, I received 10 milliliters of butyl from the supplier, but it was erroneously recorded as buprenorphine. Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah, no, that's all good. A great question, Mike. The answer is yes. Just to let you know, so before David will show you, is that once an entry is confirmed into the register, it cannot be edited or deleted, because that's against the law. So it's indelible once the entry is confirmed in. However, what you can do is what's called a reverse entry. And what that does, it's another entry that says why that entry was incorrect, and you put a reason, and then it reverses what happened, and then you go and put another entry in the system with the correct information. So David, do you want to?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly demonstrate. Essentially, as Jamie mentioned, you do a reverse entry action for any mistakes that you've made. And again, this is not going to delete the record whatsoever. Instead, it creates a second record, which is basically a mirror, positive or negative of what the first one was. I'll use this entry here as my example. Okay, the Tim Gzick that we gave to Bugs Bunny, one went out, and let's say that was a mistake and we want to actually bring it back in. So you'd always reverse it first and then do the second action afterwards. In the case that it was meant to be ketamab instead of temgesic, you need to again do a supply after you did a reversal. So to do a reversal, you select the entry in your daily entry screen. You press the reverse entry button, okay? And as Jamie mentioned, you'll need to put in a note. So you need to put in a reason. Let's say it was a mistake was made or something like that. You select the user, put in your password, press OK. And essentially, you can see the crossed out entry is the one that we reversed. But a new entry gets created for the actual reversal itself. So again, both these entries and records will be in the system. Nothing gets deleted. They'll be able to basically get a report on it so you can see as a timeline what happened and when, which is a legal requirement. And then it's simply a matter of entering manually the correction that you need to do, whether it's a supply or in your question, it was a receipt from supplier.
Great.
Right.
Cool. I think got all the questions answered. I think it is time to wrap up. I will conclude this webinar. Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you very much.
David, for putting together this webinar and your participation. It's been really, really informative overall about controlled drug management as a whole. And thank you everyone in the audience really for listening in and your questions. Special kudos to you if you stayed till the very end with us. Until next time, take care of yourselves and we'll see you again soon. Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for coming. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Keith. Bye, James. Bye, David.
Bye.